So obviously GitHub, super well known. I joined when it was way before the Microsoft acquisition. It was when the lobby was still a full-size replica of the Oval Office. I don't know
I
if
didn't
you've
know
ever
that.
heard that story. Yeah, this is like old school GitHub days. Really fun and really loved. I mean, I don't know many brands that are as loved by their users as GitHub is. The challenge was that as the user base grew, which was really organic and really by individuals, and as they then were leveraging into real commercial engagements, we were kind of coasting on that love, and the mechanics, really the fundamentals of how you treat really mid-market up to enterprise customers isn't just fun and games, right? So I love having fun at work. I love loving my colleagues, but I'm very serious about my work. And so what they really were curious about is, hey, here we have these very loyal customers. Retention was not an issue. What could it look like if we were giving ammunition to our customers to help us get into the other pockets of dev teams? At the time, a lot of dev teams were just able to choose their own tools. And so, if GitLab was in the other group or the other division or what have you, there wasn't a lot of momentum to change that. So that was the big question: is could we stop just resting on great retention and look at potential growth? So when I came in, there was already a really talented team focused on mid-market in place. There was no enterprise team, and that's kind of another interesting story. And really, for me, it was about how do you stop just checking in with your customers and making sure that they love GitHub, and talking about how to make customers heroes by being bold enough to take the GitHub goodness and take it to the other teams that could be captured in the footprint. I call that pull mechanics, where you are not just checking in on your customers, because we all know if you're checking in on your customers, you're trying to make sure, are we okay? Is there any risk here? Is my revenue at risk? But that's not why a customer wants to spend time with you. Even at GitHub, with all the love we had, when we would reach out, our CSMs would get meetings maybe half the time. Like, that wasn't a good connect rate, a good engagement rate. So instead, what we did is we took a big step back and said, let's center the customer. What do these personas, a director of engineering or a CTO, what do they care about? What do they want to learn about? Because GitHub is seen, and rightly so, as this mecca of developer collaboration. And so we came up with, every quarter, the CSM team would crowdsource, these are the 5 main topics. And now I'm going to, each CSM, either in pairs or individually, would develop a whole curriculum, just a slide deck, a talk track, a brown bag lunch, but it was content we knew that they desperately needed to learn about. And so then the campaign every quarter was, hey, how are you? Here's our latest and greatest of what we think you'd care about. Which do you want to talk about? Which do you want me to present? Do you want me to present to leadership, to your ICs? How do you want to do it? And so then we went to an engagement rate of 85, 90%. And then we bring other teams, then we were like, hey, how can we bring this goodness to other teams as well? And all of a sudden we had an expansion footprint, an expansion motion happening across many of our customers. It was really exciting. The other interesting thing, and this has become the kind of hey, you're looking good if you do this, was early renewals. So, usually people will just renew on time. But we were creating this cadence where we saw our customers to their benefit on a quarterly basis. And we were pattern spotting that every now and then people would be so excited, oh, let's just get the renewal out of the way. And so predictably, about 30% of our renewals would pull forward into the quarter before. It was astonishing.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really great, just positive sign, something magical is happening here.
I'm taking notes as you're talking, because I think we definitely fall into this trap at Doc.
Recording.
Yeah, where it's it's all right, we want to renew our customers, we want to stay on top of them, but oftentimes, we fall into this trap at Doc too. Our outreach can be more hey, just checking in, want to see how it's going, let's talk. And it's no one wants to just talk for the sake of talking. You need a touch point, you need an education touch point. And I'm curious, when you're doing this at GitHub, was the sort of customer education you're bringing, was it about new GitHub features and ways they could unlock GitHub, or was it more about the market and developer? And then maybe a follow-on question to that is who's the audience? Are you trying to get to the CTO and the highest people in the org, or was it sort of teaching everyone? How did you sort of think about the sort of persona on the other side?
These are perfect questions. So often it would be hot topics, like disaster recovery was really hot at the time. We would then try to hook it into, if GitHub could be helpful in those areas, then we would say, hey, and do you want to follow in training? Because this is how you could actually leverage the platform to help support what you just learned. But it was really trying to be, especially, I mean, it was unique to GitHub because GitHub is such a leader in kind of this whole world of how developers work and collaborate. And so we had the advantage of kind of automatic status as thought leaders. So just us providing information that was helpful to their teams was a huge win for us. It varied kind of where we were targeting. We did a lot of account planning. Each CSM, we kind of rebalanced books of business so that everybody could have an account plan. Who do I want to penetrate to? Am I more concerned in this engagement with users who seem to be falling off or not using us as much, like what's happening? Or, hey, we have nailed the director level. Do we need to rise to the VP level? So then we're going to suggest topics that are more about, how do you leverage, your developers in a more effective way? Like it could be more of a business oriented or efficiency gain oriented topic. And I will say this, like often, unfortunately, many organizations reach out to just touch base. And it isn't even just a neutral. It's not like, oh, bummer, they're not going to engage with us. It actually erodes trust because it's noise. Everybody has a million things coming at them all the time. And if a software tool that you really enjoy using and you hear from the CSM, hey, just want to touch base, you're like, oh, I like this tool, but now, like, why did that even occupy my attention for the 30 seconds it took me to read the email? Though every touch counts. And, the whole pull mechanics idea is that every touch should give value to the customer. And if you're writing an email like, hey, just want to touch base, do you have time? Don't send it.
Yeah. And even worse, if you get on the call to touch base and then you get on the call and it's just like, hey, how's it going? Like, and then there's no value. Yeah, exactly.
No, it's like
then you're even wasting more time, and then they're kind of, and then you lose trust, so you can't even get on the next call when it's more important,
right.
and things like that.